Hello everybody, so this video is entitled The HIMSS Aftermath. Did the tourists leave? There was a bullish call yesterday because yes, the call was extremely bullish, and actually the market agrees with me. Actually, I didn't catch the screenshot, but briefly HIMSS was in the green today, so I see sentiment changing. Folks are still getting their FUD in, still getting their bearish takes in for engagement, for X, but the stock is holding up. Now, the most frustrating FUD that I saw, that I still, need, my video yesterday that I released, 40 minutes after the earnings, I said it, I still see this FUD circulating on X. This is crazy. People gotta read the footnotes. When you read the footnotes, what do you see? You see that the guidance excludes the recently announced acquisition of Eucalyptus. You still have posts on X trending right now saying that, the growth that they guided is actually only going to be 6 or 5% because they included Eucalyptus. And they say, how could HIMSS grow so slow despite acquiring a firm with so much revenue? It's going to be bad. It's complete FUD. This guidance right here does not include Eucalyptus. It does not include Eucalyptus. In fact, they said on the call that with Eucalyptus closing early in the first half, they could potentially recognize up to $200 million of revenue from the Eucalyptus acquisition. So that is essentially the range, the 2.7 to 2.9 billion. That's a $200 million range that you gotta add on top of that. So really, the guide, if you include Eucalyptus, is between 24%, right, 2.7 billion plus 200 million, and 33%. Right, because 200 million, that would be 9%. That would be their delta right here. So you gotta add it up. So the guide is rather between 24 and 33% with Eucalyptus. So my number at 25% here is actually fairly conservative because that does not include Eucalyptus. We could be at 30% growth thanks to Eucalyptus, and you still have people saying, the guide is really only 6 or 7% growth because look, they did include Eucalyptus in the guidance, even though if a footnote literally says, if you look, it literally says, we are not including the acquisition. The revenue from the acquisition is not included, right? Excludes any potential contributions from the recently announced acquisition of Eucalyptus, which is expected to close in the middle of calendar year 2026. So middle of calendar year, 200 million, and remember that 450 million, that is growing at 100%. That's a triple-digit growth. So the FUD never stops on this company. People want to have engagement farming. People want to have followers. That's what's going on. Now, weight loss. Weight loss is still the big debate. People confuse GLP-1s and weight loss. And in fact, I've said that before, more than a year ago. We knew this. We've known for a while. And this is one of the first sentences pronounced in the call. What do they say in the call? As we have shared in the past, our weight loss offering reached 100 million in revenue run rate in less than 7 months after launch, and that excludes any contributions from compounded GLP-1. If you remember the launch of their weight loss category, it was not GLP-1. The launch was just oral medications. And these companies sell a whole lot of these super profitable oral weight loss pills, which are metformin-based or bupropion-based, and of course, it's customized, so it's whatever the algo is going to say is good for you. They have a med match, right? It's a customized drug, but it's going to be a mix of bupropion, metformin, and topiramate, and they have the data as to whether this is leading to weight loss or not. We are seeing a major shift in quote-unquote off-label prescriptions, right? Metformin, for example, is a diabetes drug, but it has the very nice side effect to make people lose weight. People lose weight when they're on metformin. It has that nice side effect. Same, bupropion, right? Originally, it's an antidepressant, anti-anxiety drug, but it has the wonderful side effect of also leading to weight loss. So these oral medications are prescribed off labels for weight loss, for the purpose of weight loss. And you can look it up. It's very legitimate. Look up bupropion for weight loss. You will see, Cleveland Clinic's website talking about how, okay, it can be used for, weight loss. So these pills are a lot of the business. And by the way, I follow LifeMD also on this channel. LifeMD has said the same thing, that, a lot of customers initially come and inquire about GLP-1s, but then they realize that it's going to be expensive. And so what do? They move to an oral medication. And the oral treatments, the oral medication, in many cases are comparable to semaglutide. In many, many cases. They are not comparable to tirzepatide. 80% of the GLP-1 market is tirzepatide. Hims does not sell tirzepatide. Hims does not compound tirzepatide. It only does semaglutide. Okay? So Hims weight loss is just one category from Hims. They have all sorts of categories, right? They have ED, which they call sexual health. They have weight loss. They have anxiety medication. They have hair loss. They have low T, so that's hormone replacement therapy. Division, they just launched longevity. They just launched labs. All of these are part of the Hims platform categories. Hims has categories of treatments within that platform. Weight loss is just one of these categories, and weight loss is much more comprehensive than just GLP-1. The market keeps conflating the two, but it's different, right? Their weight loss category actually includes advice. The Hims app is actually, Hims has a nice side business of just, teaching, right? Having advice on all sorts of topics. So the Hims platform is including advice. They also do protein bars and shakes. People forgot about that. They have generic liraglutide, which is off patent, which is the original GLP-1. It's generic. It's there, right? No questions on the call about liraglutide. I would have definitely asked about liraglutide. There's no lawsuit issue with liraglutide. It's off patent, right? They have metformin bupropion-based pills, as discussed, which is a big business for them. And yes, they have compounded GLP-1 semaglutide, which, is of course customized, and I guess in 2030 we'll get to know whether mass customization of drugs is allowed or not. And of course, as an Hims investor, I believe that customized drugs are the future. Drugs need to be customized one-to-one with AI. AI needs to decide the exact dose, right? Novo is going to argue that Hims is just using customization as an excuse to be able to, quote-unquote, knock off the drug. That's what Novo is going to argue. Hims is going to say, you don't understand. Our entire business model is based on customization. We customize everything. And the court is going to have a fun time with that, because I believe personally that all drugs should be customized. It makes absolutely perfect sense. Ever bought customized clothes, custom clothes, a custom suit? A custom suit fits much better. A custom shirt fits much better. Huh? Have you tried a customized stream on YouTube, which is exactly what you like? A customized stream on Netflix, which is exactly what you like? Customized Spotify? Customized, products on Amazon. Customization is the future. That's the whole value prop of Hims. And so they're arguing they can't do that. But this is going to be a very fun one. I'm actually glad they go through with it. It's going to be very fun. And I think one of the things that we're gonna also realize is, can you modify a natural peptide? Can you modify it just slightly and then boom, patent it? Can you just modify something that's natural? You modify it slightly and then boom, you patent it. So anyways, they have actual, quotation mark here, because like I said, it's yet to be determined by the court whether compounded GLP-1 are knockoffs or not. But they have semaglutide in Canada, period. because Novo did not renew the patent in Canada because they wanted to save $300. This is a real story. And at some point, they will have more stuff. Ally, I think there could be something done with Ally. Ally is kind of a forgotten weight loss pill in the United States. Hims could sell Ally. I don't see why not. They do, and Ally is OTC in the US, right, over the counter, so that means you don't need a prescription, but they sell protein bars. Protein bars are OTC as well. So I think they could offer Ally and learn from eucalyptus and offer Ally pretty soon. Maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but why not a lipomosul liraglutide pill? Why not? I mean, liraglutide is once daily. It's a once daily GLP-1. Why couldn't you put it in a fat delivery system in a pill, and then you just have it? I think this could be possible. You could have a twice a day or 3 times a day a liposomal liraglutide pill. Why not? And they invested in that research. Oh, and by the way, for those who say, oh, they didn't explain the whole mishap that of them offering oral semaglutide and then removing it. Yes, they did explain it on the call. They said that they were adamant about launching it. They had been working about it for months, but then they had conversations with the regulator, and it was strongly advised, based on the conversation they had, that they should remove it. So perhaps a lot of that legal overhang is gone, at least from an FDA investigation standpoint. Perhaps it's gone because they removed it, right? There was phone calls. That's what they discussed. So they didn't expect the FDA to take such an anti-affordability stance, which is, of course, what they say, right? They say that they're all about affordability. Yes, HIMSS is all about affordability. When you don't charge for a doctor visit and the regular system charges $200 for a doctor visit plus $200 for a follow-up, you are disrupting everything. You're disrupting the whole business, right? Entirely, because in the old system, doctors are separate from pharmacies, which are separate from insurance companies, which are separate from labs. Everything's separate. Everybody wants a cut. Everybody wants a margin. HIMSS puts it all together and takes a very, very small margin in order to disrupt. That's what this company is doing. They're breaking the entire business model of legacy healthcare. And we're creating something new. And this is why Wall Street hates it with a passion. This is why Trad Health hates it with a passion. Also, for folks complaining about the lawsuit, really, really quickly, right? The timeline is likely 2029. That's when that's going to happen, unless they settle before. And it's very likely they will settle before. More than 50% chance, maybe I would say. I don't know, no expert. But the timeline is 2029 for the lawsuit. And if there's an appeal, which you bet if it doesn't go the way of HIMSS, there'll be an appeal, 2031. Right? So this is so way out in the distance. The speed of law is one of the slowest thing ever. Not to mention, and this is important, and I'm going out on a limb a little bit here, but barely. I don't think this is a hot take to say that semaglutide is dead in the US once, and semaglutide will probably be fine in the rest of the world because the US, it seems, will be the first to approve retatrutide. But once retatrutide is approved, who's going to buy semaglutide? Retatrutide is the ultimate peptide. If you follow peptides, it's like you have men getting on retatrutide, like perfectly healthy men. They get on retatrutide. Not only do they lose all of the belly fat, they have abs showing. Guy barely worked out in his life. He's got the abs showing. He's losing all of the weight. Retatrutide is kind of a miracle drug. And I believe retatrutide could be the blockbuster drug. Actually, I believe it might be worth analyzing Lilly just because of retatrutide. And what's very important as far as retatrutide goes is that HIMSS never messed with Lilly. They never messed with Lilly. They never compounded tirzepatide. And yeah, you're going to have some bears that say, but they were going to compound tirzepatide. They never did. And I don't think they were going to. And in fact, HIMSS has never had a confrontational relationship with Lilly, ever, to the point, good reporting on HIMSS House on this, to the point that the chief medical officer of Lilly is now following HIMSS on social media and following HIMSS House on social media. So clearly, what does that mean? HIMSS never messed with Lilly. And so maybe a partnership with Lilly is in the cards at some point. I don't know. But we have to wait. We have to wait until red data gets approved. And of course, the market is not, the market is not willing to wait even a few days when it comes to HIMSS. So anyways, it's complete nonsense. So let me move on. And I'll conclude. And this is, of course, something that was reinforced on the call. The first thing, that was the first sentence, actually, that Dudum said. We're a consumer-oriented company. HIMSS is a customer-centric company. What is a customer-centric company? What is the best example? Who invented customer centricity? It's Amazon. That's the ultimate customer-centric company. What is a customer-centric company? It's a company that customers love. It's a company that does not rely on patents and modes to charge an arm and a leg for the customer. Right, the classic example of a bad moti business is the hot day in Texas. You're on an amusement park. You charge $8 for a water bottle. That's rent seeking, right? EpiPen 2015. You multiply the price by 30x because you can. The EpiPen was $30. Now the EpiPen is $500. And you just do this because you can, because you have the moat, right? Customer centricity is different. Customer centricity is about developing love between customers and the company. It's about exploiting a relationship over the entire lifetime of that customer and not trying to just nickel and dime one time, to just charge a lot one time. 20th century business is all about moat and charging whatever you can and having a one-time transaction. Modern day business are about satisfaction. They're all about the customer is king, satisfying the customer, making sure the customer comes back, making sure the customer is an advocate and speaks very highly of your business. That's the Amazon business model. And how is HIMSS doing that? Well, so simple. Don't pay for the doctor visit. Bundle the price of a doctor with the prescription. Which, if people go see the doctor in the first place, they're likely needing something. Right? Then, cheaper than most copays. Back when HIMSS was a more popular stock, Dudum explained that on the call, that the average American spends something like $2,200 or $2,300 a year on copays. That's enough for 3 to 4 HIMSS subscriptions. So yes, it is cheaper than copays when the average American spends more than $2,000 on copays. Transparent pricing, you know exactly what you're getting charged, and you can make a decision. I dare you to go in the traditional sector and make a decision about seeing the doctor. You don't know how much you're going to get charged, Okay, unless you're going in for a physical, and most plans cover physicals. But not all plans cover physicals. And depending on the act, depending on what is done at the doctor office, you may be charged. My local clinic, I've said this before, but my local clinic is between $176 and $480, and that depends on what you want from the doctor that day. But $176 is the bare minimum. And it took me going multiple times to find that out, by the way. So anyways, because you don't find it out right away. And if you go ask a doctor, how much is this visit gonna cost? They're gonna tell you, well, it depends, right? It depends. Anyways, convenient subscription. You don't have to quote unquote call in your pharmacy for a refill. I could have put you leaps and bounds better privacy, right? Pharmacies. I don't understand how a physical pharmacy complies with all of the privacy laws when you just yell at the drive-through the name for your prescription, and when you can pick up the prescription from somebody else. Like, should you be allowed to pick up a prescription for somebody else without their ID, without anything? That's very fishy to me. I could have put privacy too in customer centricity. That's a big plus of shopping online, which you don't have when you go from your pharmacy's drive-through and yell out of the window, I'm picking up a prescription for insert last name of the person. And then the whole town knows someone is getting a prescription for something. Anyways, an all-encompassing app. A modern app with modern UX and design where you want to interact, not Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. Have you ever used that? Oh my gosh. Anyways, Blue Cross Blue Shield of insert your state if that's your insurance. Try that. They haven't updated since 2005. Like, it's like you gotta type a code. You gotta know a code to know possibly the price, and even then they give you a price range. It's a complete mess. HIMSS is so gonna disrupt. It's not even funny. And soon, what do we have? We have labs now you have to drive, but soon we're going to have, with the Tribe acquisition, we're going to have at-home blood samples, right? At-home labs with a painless needle. That's 0 to 1. That's customer-centric. To buy a company that has like an actual microderm, as they call it. I don't really know how it works. But essentially, you can draw blood without any pain, just by going to the top layers of the skin. It's pretty fascinating. It's totally 0 to 1. I could see so many applications, including for peptides, because if you have a technology that's a painless needle, which, by the way, I think they paid something like $200 million for this company, so it was a pretty elite company, if you ask me. If you have a painless needle, and peptides, oftentimes peptides need to be injected, that's going to be a big deal. I don't know if these needles are 2 ways or 1 way, but I think that's going to be a big, big deal to develop a painless needle. Nobody cares about that, right? Because it's a few years out. Wristband, they talked about wristband trackers in the call, right? That's coming. And if you follow this, you knew this was coming. This is coming at some point. New, I didn't know about that. They're talking about mouth swabs. So you can get like a kind of like Q-tip and swap it against the back of your mouth, and then you can send it back as a test, and you can learn a bunch of stuff. And so I will add my own to this as to what is coming soon. I think urine tests could be very, very, very easy to add. You could add like I know a lot of STDs, for example. You could have like pregnancy confirmation. Oftentimes. People need to go to the doctor for that. Anyways, there's a lot of things you could do at home, including urine tests, including mouth swabs. I also believe that phones are already very, very, very good for dermatology. I believe they're going to be so much better for dermatology, and you could have a body scan. You could scan your body. Give it a few years. When the average phone has a 200 megapixel camera, give it a few years. This is something we could integrate in the app, and you could have many, many more dermatology. Anyways, all of this and all of the business they've done before, this is all about, to me, collecting data, collecting a unified data set. And this is where HIMSS, in my view, is going to shine. I wish HIMSS spent more time talking about AI. AI diagnostics, AI-designed compounded medications. We know they have MedMatch. That's AI. That's the recommender system. Patient has a questionnaire. Patient says everything that's going on, and then MedMatch says, well, based on the 2 million plus customers we have, we estimate that this pill is going to work best for this patient. Then the doctor on the apps approve the number 1 pill recommended by MedMatch or makes a change, right? The doctor approves, MedMatch recommends. And of course, that's how it works with labs. You do your labs, and then you have a recommender system recommending something for you to fix, right? Whether it's high blood pressure or I don't know, atherosclerosis. There's all sorts of issues you can develop with labs, and so they can give you a statin or give you a weight loss pill, right? But you can measure cholesterol, etc. There's so many things that labs can lead to recommender systems recommending AI designed compounded pills that fix a bunch of issues at once. AI designed drugs, I think, are the future. Customized compounds that are in the public domain that you can use and sell. Customized compounds that are in the public domain that you can use and sell. And turns out, for most minor issues that are treated by HIMSS, they are all in the public domain, right? Even, ED, hair loss, anxiety, SSRIs, all of that is the public domain, and you can just design the perfect combo with AI. To me, the opportunities for AI in the future, to me, are incredibly exciting. And this is because you could have a single place with all of your data, with a recommender system, cooking, walking, all the time on that data, right? You could have a chatbot. I totally imagine HIMSS launching an AI chatbot. Why wouldn't HIMSS launch an AI chatbot? That'd be great. Now, I'm sure there's regulations about that, but an AI chatbot who all the time analyzes your data, looks at your data, and of course a smartwatch. You would plug in new data all the time. You could have predictive simulations based on your labs. So, well, if you don't correct this weight loss, we think you're going to be pre-diabetic within 3 years and 3 months. And that's the AI who does that, right? Eventually, I fundamentally believe in this. Eventually, I think there will be digital twins. And so if you have a digital twin in the HIMSS app, then you can have MedMatch work on the drugs and simulate on you whether the drugs work or not. I believe they'll come up with new formulation, eventually probably new research, new science, enabling by feeding the largest data set possible to an AI. The key to this is collecting a uniform data set on millions of members. The data is very, 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 very key, and HIMSS is creating a huge data set. Now, if you follow the healthcare sector, you know that's not the case for a lot of hospitals. They guard their data, very much so. The data is so important. It's very, very tough to find holistic connected databases. Epic on the back end connects it all, but it's not that easy, especially for early care, preventative care, mild issues, right? Hospitals, Epic tends to deal with data of people who are more advanced in their disease, not early on in their disease. I believe that data set of 2.5 million customers is going to be extremely valuable in the future, and I can't wait to see what HIMSS is going to do. That's why I'm staying in the HIMSS stock. I'm staying on this journey. This journey is much bigger than what the market thinks with GLP-1s. Anyways, I'll conclude with this. HIMSS is vertically integrated. They also invested in cancer tests, right? The Grail acquisition, the Grail investment, right? That's a pretty big deal. They have their own labs testing, their facilities. It's fully vertically integrated, right? And I think they were gonna own the entire stack. I guess they won't own delivery. That doesn't make any sense for them to own delivery. But beyond delivery, they should own most of the things, and I think they could get into making the compounds and making the molecules at some point. They could get into doing that, synthesizing peptides. If people, we're talking about peptides quickly. If people buy equipment on Alibaba to make peptides at home, then you bet a bigger company can make its own peptide. And then lastly, the growth for HIMSS is worldwide. And let me finish this video by extinguishing a last piece of FUD, which is growth by acquisition is bad. And people complain about growth by acquisition. Let me tell you about growth by acquisition. It is bad when AT&T tries to buy Time Warner for $70 billion. It is bad when you're going to spend $20-30 billion to acquire your firm and you overpay. That is not the case of HIMSS. HIMSS is, by all means, underpaying for the acquisition in this sector. You see the valuation of HIMSS, how low it is, right? Eucalyptus was a way lower valuation than HIMSS, if you ask me. They made a very, very good deal, and they acquire small when the companies are still growing. Those acquisitions tend to have much, much, much better return profiles than big acquisitions. These are not mergers. These are small acquisitions, and I like small acquisitions. I've always done that. Remember that Android was bought by Google for $50 million. Remember that Instagram was bought by Facebook for something like $1 billion or something 800 million. I can't remember. Small acquisitions are good. Big acquisitions are bad, and people often confuse the two. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.